Welcome to the Heroes of Reality podcast, a podcast about the game of life and the hero's journey we all experience. Let's jump in with our host, Dylan Watkins, as he introduces today's guest.
Welcome, young adventurers, and on today's podcast, I have Simeone Scaramozzino. He creates meaningful businesses for conscious and sustainable evolutionary journeys of all planetary ecosystems and communities. He writes, produces, and directs the transformative, immersive mixed reality universes centered around the participation of human connection by dissolving the boundaries of ancient wisdom and exponential technology. He is the writer, director, and producer of the Virtual Temple Immersive Experience of the Virtual Burning Man and the chapter lead of Transformative Tech, a global community creating new tools for exponential well-being and human flourishing. So without any further delay, I would like to welcome my friend, Simeone.
Namaste, and thank you very much for not butchering my name.
My pleasure, and with great effort.
Dylan, it doesn't. Let me tell you, it doesn't happen very often. Yeah. So it makes me particularly happy that you didn't. Thank you.
I'm super happy to tell that there might be just a slight bit of my ancestral Italian heritage coming forth in this. Oh my God.
And also thank you for having me. Thank you very much for the invitation. I feel like a privileged one. And so thank you. And thank Drew for all the everything, taking care of all of us leading into this experience.
Of course, brother. This is going to be a co-created experience. So it's going to be a lot of fun on this journey. So thank you for being here with me as well. This should be a lot of fun. So looking into it, yeah, I mean, one of the things was kicking things off. We just had our virtual Burning Man, and there was actually a rogue Burning Man at the same time, fairly recent, and a really unique time considering that Burning Man has been an in-person festival and unique experience, I should say, for a number of years and almost decades here. And you actually were the lead in creating the virtual temple burn. I'd like to kick it off with talking about a little bit about your journey leading up to that and what got you involved with creating that experience.
Well, it's a great question because it's one of my favorite topics, actually. Burning Man, I don't need to restate what Burning Man is, but it's a big global community. It's also a way of thinking, it's a culture. It's so many things. And when last year it wasn't impossible to manifest in physical reality, we decided that it was a great experiment and experience to go into a virtual space. So last year we really did it out of our very own hearts and our best effort basis, and it came out so successfully because the great reflection that came from that is that we all burners, like everybody on the planet, I suppose, and beyond, we all ultimately look for connection. And so technology in that particular instance was used by many, even those who had never participated, have never attended Burning Man, was used to create a further connection. And so that led straight into this year. This year we were very ready, actually, to go back to the player. However, we had to, I don't like to use this verb, but it is to pivot again into the virtual space. But, the virtual space has become something that is integral to our experience to such an extent that we're thinking of having it continue to exist, whether or not we will be soon back on the playa. For me, it means very much because that is part of the work I do. I create multi-sensorial immersive experiences by intertwining, by creating a new intersection, between visuals, sound, and other forms of stimuli, ties balance, alignment, and connection. So for me, once again, this year, creating the virtual temple experience was a way to bring people into a state of altered, so to speak, consciousness, meaning leading them into a journey, into a very introspective journey. And so that has a lot to do with the culture of Burning Man. I don't want to.
Well, it's beautiful. And one thing to talk on, I want to touch on, because people that aren't familiar, there's kind of like this, I would say a bit of a black veil over Burning Man if you've never been to the experience, where people see a lot of these photos on social media about people all dusty and dirty, covered in looks like a post-apocalyptic wear, running all over the place, and they see it as essentially just a music festival, or a thing if you've never been there before, or just absolute indulgences and wild things that might be a bit taboo. But the temple really represents a place that is very opposite than that. It's not about the wildness and the craziness, and I'm running around naked and I've got a weird hat on kind of thing, which still exists at Burning Man 100%. But the temple is a very sacred place, and something that isn't normally seen at these large gatherings and these large events outside of family funerals and other places. Like, could you describe just a little bit about the meaning of the temple and its relationship in general to Burning Man?
Yeah, certainly. Burning Man is also a city, right? It's an ephemeral city that we are blessed to build every year. So if we go with this metaphor, if Burning Man were a city, the temple is a spiritual center of the city. And of course, it's a non-religious, spiritual center, and it's a spiritual center. As such, it hosts all the whole variety of emotions that people can choose to share with others, or just choose to share, as I like to say, with the space itself. So it is true that it is perceived on the outside as not the crazy place where people enjoy dancing and all the things you have expressed. But I like to say it is actually for everyone, even those ones that run around, so to speak, naked, but then to have a place to sit with themselves, to connect with their inner self. And so that is really what I do when I create the virtual experiences around the temple, is allow people the opportunity to go through their own hero's journey, a journey of introspection and connection. And for instance, this year have chosen to bring people into a journey where they can begin to familiarize with the chakras and what the role of the chakras in their emotional and physical life. And
so when talking about that, and I definitely want to talk about this journey, because it's not a typical, I've never been to, let's just label it, which just so for simplicity's sake, as a festival. It is also a temple, it is a city, it is a place. But a lot of people go, oh, I haven't been to Burning Man, but I've been to other festivals, right? But they don't, that's the common, if you say that, that's usually the response. But people that have been to Burning Man, there's nothing quite like the temple that I've seen at, we'll just call them festivals, right? Because it is this place where you can go and you have a deep, there is a reverence there. There is a thing where it's not like the energy shifts when you walk into the place, and it is a quiet, introspective, reflective connectiveness that makes you almost a stoic philosophy, reflecting on the shortness of life and the appreciation of what we have, and that own journey of thinking about your place in the cosmos in our limited time span. So looking at that fact, and can you describe a bit about the journey and the chakras and the experience, and what you've brought in the virtual temple and how it relates back to the actual temple?
Definitely. One, I want to touch back for a second about on the relationship between the temple and the festival. So the presence of the temple is probably one of the big differentiators of Burning Man, right, vis-a-vis the festivals, and also that proves once again that we are also a culture, we are a community, not only we are a place or an event, so to speak. The way I thought about the temple experience is that we are in our own journey right, of introspection, and also we are spirits, so to speak, knowing, experiencing this level of awareness through our genetic spaceships. So I was in designing such an experience, I was imagining people journeying into the temple, into the hall particularly, where the hall represented the order of things, the way at this level of perception we perceive of things. So in the hall I created 7 different portkeys, 7 different portals, and those portals have a correspondence with the chakra system. And so when people walked around the temple, they had the opportunity to, first of all, familiarize or reacquaint themselves with the idea that there are forces that are all around us, and they are in a way or another directing our human experience. And so when you walked into a temple, you would get in the proximity of, say, the solar plexus chakra, and this chakra would talk to you and would address you, telling you about what the chakra meant and what the crystal, because each and every portal was a crystal that was relevant for the vibration, for the frequency of the chakra, meant in relation to the chakra. So imagine the chakra was also emitting not only the light, but also the sound that was rebalancing your chakra. So one point I'm going to say here is that in the experience, you could actually rebalance the chakra. Why? Because we are a big music box. And so sound has a big effect on our vegetative and emotional states. So there is a lot of research regarding how sound can affect your breathing, your heart coherence, and many, many other things. And when you were in front of it, after you were in front of it, you could namaste and open this portal into the hemisphere, into a very emotional, intimate sphere that allowed you the opportunity to explore the different emotions that are connected with one specific chakra. And in that place, by means of sound and visuals, and also connecting in the present moment through a meditation, you were given the opportunity to make your emotional offering, your emotional offering to the temple. So you were giving away your fear or your happiness or all sorts of emotions in that specific range. And that offering would become one pixel in the mosaic that you could see in the temple, where the mosaic was a mandala representing the global consciousness on the planet, meaning that every action that we enact on a personal level, it also is automatically connected with the collective level.
That's beautiful. And what a way to connect, because when we look at ourselves, one of the questions we can ask ourselves, one of the truths that I believe is that, we are both an individual self and we are part of the global whole. We are both. We are both individually independent and in a little tiny box as a thing. And we are also connected to everything at once. And so I love the way that you used this technology to basically make an emotional offering that then stitched to the global mosaic an entire experience, really making a collaborative, co-created emotional journey that you could take a look and go, this is the emotions of, X amount of people across the mosaic throughout time, which is a wonderful experience. In terms of doing that, I mean, was there a genesis for that thought process? Like, how did you come across that? What really opened it up, and what was the intent in terms of result you're looking for by creating something like this?
The inspiration comes from I sit with medicine. One part of my life is being an apprentice curandero, what we mistakenly call the shaman in the Western society.
Yeah.
And so I get a lot of inspiration regarding the connection between the self and the known self in my journeys into my transpersonal journeys, where those transpersonal journeys are not only about those specific where I sit with medicine, but it suffices, for instance, for you to go into the Amazon forest to realize how the perspective of things change. We always treat or deal with the other species as if they were our guests. But for instance, one of the things that you discover when you go into the Amazon forest is that you are indeed their guest. And that has a big impact on the way you perceive of the world. So I take a lot of inspiration from that.
Got it.
Because such places show you the incredible level of connectedness that does exist and we tend to forget about between us and all the ecosystems that we are integral to and that we should be collaborative with.
Yeah. I remember because I've also I've sit with medicine before in like the Amazon jungle, like Quito's area, and I remember we were in like a little village-esque area, and then we went for a tour around the place, and we went into the forest, and there was basically a hole cut out of the forest where you could tell that the guides were just they look back at us and they're like, "Don't touch anything." Just as much as you can get through it, and you could feel the life inside there trying to reclose that hole that we're walking through, and you can tell that we were in this experience, and you could tell without the use of technologies, without the predecessors coming out of this, without our ancestors coming and making paths and those types of things, like we are one small piece of this whole collective ecosystem being inside there, and we've just gotten very good at being able to carve ourselves out of that situation and then planting ourselves in mechanical ecosystems and houses with plumbings and refrigerators to store food, and we've put ourselves out of that, and it was one of those moments that I realized I looked at like, wow, I am very, very, very small inside here, and if it's just me by myself and I just had to go off in the woods to figure this thing out, it would be a challenge to try to make it a few days, let alone thrive. So an appreciation for it, but also appreciation for nature. So it does give you that sensation. The sitting with medicine piece, often people get messages of love and unity and acceptance and things like that. Now, for you, do you feel like that is something that is calling something deep within? Or is that something that we are more of an antenna and you feel like we are getting messages from another source? What is your feelings on that?
My feeling is that we do exist outside the confines of our biological presence and also of all the confines of our belief system. So under certain circumstances, we are able to reconnect with those multi-dimensional us or you that we are, but for many reasons that we can touch on later if you wish, we tend to forget or to keep it only latent or to it's best try and connect when it's necessary, because it is true that at certain levels of vibration, it's hard to integrate the two experiences. So I think we are multi-dimensional beings that we need to learn how to integrate the ecosystemic experiences into our daily lives without, though, trying to bastardize them. Being in a forest is an incredibly opening experience per se. Sitting with medicine is part of the connection. I want to say something that is relevant to what you were asking.
Sure.
In my virtual experiences, I always sing the Hereos. The Hereos are, as you know, those vocalizations that we as shamans sing, emit during the medicine experiences. But to most, those are musical. the truth is that for the shaman and for the medicine, that is a way for us to connect our physical being with the vibration of a plant. So, from a shamanic perspective, the vocalization isn't done for the purpose of entertainment or distraction. It's actually us bringing into the physical world the vibration of the plant. So, if I'm sitting with ayahuasca, by singing a specific Icaro, I'm bringing to the people that are sitting with me the vibration of that specific plant. And this per se, it's a mind blowing thing to only entertain such thing, that we as humans are able to connect with the vibrations of the plants and bring such vibrations into our dimensional field for us to enjoy and connect. So it is also perhaps changing the perspective with which we choose to frame reality. That is at the very nature, the very heart of the transpersonal experiences that are mediated by the different devices and tools and incidents that we have just spoken about.
It's interesting because you're right. I mean, being multidimensional beings, the challenge is, though, with us is that we can only view things through one or maybe a few lenses at the same time before it becomes overwhelming. So if you go on a journey, say via plant medicine, you take in a certain type of lens and all these experiences, and it can be overwhelming as you're going through it, and you're coming back and you're trying to integrate that lens back into this environment, and it's one of those things that's it's difficult to get that back and look through that lens and keep that lens constant in this reality as you're stepping through things, and the challenge is the being able to switch between lenses and then being aware what lenses you're in and knowing what you need to do to kind of integrate these new lenses that you're given as you go through this experience.
It's I like to call it reality hopping, right? It's it's like truly sort of trying to not go for the one size fits all kind of experience. What I'm trying to say is that when you go into the forest, you are the forest's guest. So you don't try and superimpose or impose or direct the forest towards your wishes, but otherwise you try and adapt with it. You try and flow with the forest, right? So I think that a state of reality hopping is a state in which you can flow with the different dimensions without resisting. I think most of our issues with integrating it is that we resist. There also is a problem that when you come back from the forest, you imagine that whatever was in the forest should be presented to you at this level of vibration on a daily basis, which is not the case. The case is that vibration will continue to stay with you for you to access it by devices or modalities such as breathing, for instance, like being mindful about breathing, that are just as simple as that, but they are available for you should you choose not to have to look at the experience you had in the forest as the benchmark, your new benchmark, because this reality hopping is really going from a reality to another, and every reality you go, the rules and the backdrop is changing.
Yeah, it's definitely I mean, we are highly adaptable, very fluid creatures that can really thrive in almost any situation, and moving from place to place. There's this desire to try to recreate things, to chase the dragon, to try to say that this is the only state I want to live in. But being dynamic, we need a lot of things. So we need water, but too much water will kill us. We need food, but too much is not a good thing. Like, and we need conflict because we need resolution. We need all sides of it. And if we get none of that, then we're not alive. And so understanding that you're right, you shouldn't have as a benchmark. You should say, okay, what am I really seeking right now? And then go find a setting, any assistance along the way to get you to where you want to go along the path, even if sometimes that is just letting go and accepting and going through this experience as more of a passenger versus the grand dictator of all of life and mastering the whole thing. There's a power to that, and there's a power to what you're talking about, the vibing and lenses. There's something about music that you're right. It is like this feeling connection thing that you vibe with people, that you throw out this sound and this signal and this energy, and you can literally get on the same wave with someone with music or with plants as well, and go through that. And so do you use, in terms of music and Icaros and things like that, how do you use that on like a day-to-day basis, let's say outside of plant medicine, for connections and state changes, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, on a daily basis, for instance, this is very often around me, and this is, for instance, has a vibration and has a note that is supposed to open your throat chakra. So I've used it before getting started this lovely conversation with you, and I will continue to use it throughout the day or in different times of the day. In other words, I also use white noise or binaurals to knowing that you can direct your brain to in certain states, right? You can direct your brain to be more open to creation, more open to connection, or more open to reflection, or meditation, or contemplation. In other words, we are having this incredible physical experience, but we should not perceive of our biological systems as a limitation, rather as a playful and soundful music box. I do trust that music can have a big impact on our physical experience. So I like to say that we are water kept together by sound and light. This is truly our molecules law, certain vibrations.
Water kept together by sound and light.
Yeah.
So okay, I get that we're mostly water, but how are we kept together with sound and light?
Well, the way water organizes itself, it's very much, let me say it as a photonic experience, right? And sound and light are two forms of electromagnetism, and there are our own cells that do organize themselves despite of what is happening in our brain, by the way, made mostly of water, is highly dependent on the conditions of sound and light on the planet. For instance, one very good example is what happens to the plants. Plants are great intaker of light and sound, and they do a lot with it. And we are slowly catching up with that idea by, for instance, you are seeing probably around the world a lot of attention to the vibration of water, to its alkalinity, to systems to create a more alkaline water, the system to reduce the residue by known chemical systems and by known chemical means. In other words, we are catching up with the theory of sound as a way to exert conditions on the natural, incredibly, by the way, mysterious way our water cells organize in the body. There are 78, mysteries of water, and they continue the mysteries of water continue to grow the more we get into the science of it.
I'm not familiar with the mysteries of water. Like I'm not. Maybe I am, but I can't even think of comprehend 78. Could you talk a little bit more about the mysteries of water?
Well, the mysteries of water, there are many anomalies. For instance, one amongst the many is the boiling temperature. Of all the gases, water has a different behavior than other gases. So what I'm trying to say is that we are catching up with the idea that it is the condition of sound and light on the planet that is allowing us to live in this physical body as it is. I can't remember which scientist said that under different conditions we could be a pond of water. Like we just become a pond of water. And I find it so fascinating. And I find it very fascinating in so many ways. And you must have heard about the theory of Masaru Emoto and so many other researchers who have, for instance, seen the influence of certain vibrations on the water crystals. So by conducting experiments where in a glass of water, you add some water to which I would be saying, I love you. Or into another glass of water, I would put water and I would say, I hate you. And when the crystals of such waters were analyzed after being refrigerated, etc., different geometric forms were observed. So, which brings back to the geometrical connections between the way we perceive of things and the way our endowment at birth. For instance, when we are born, our water is hexagonal, the water structure. But then when we grow up, it becomes pentagonal. And apparently that bond missing is causing us to get old and die. So I could go on and on, but stop it.
Yeah, no, it's super fascinating, right? There's a ton of mysteries that, like, you just look at the environment that needed to be set up in order for us to survive here. Our atmosphere holding all of the air in as it's spinning around and keeping everything together, and versus Mars and have one not as, and so it just goes away. There's a lot of amazing mysteries that we're slowly uncovering and wrapping around, but that sound and music and connection and vibration and our need for water, our need of being water. There's a thing that people sometimes discount emotions and energy because we get in this very binary producing, creating, production environments, and there's a lot of discounting of emotions, like, oh, that's just whimsical, or that's just this. And there's a lot of things that you don't realize, that if the trying to fight against what we naturally are can make for a rough going existence, versus being fluid and going through the experience and really embracing all of our different dimensions, can really allow us to make life a much more pleasant, fluid journey. So did you take into account these pieces and the chakras and everything when you're making the virtual temple burn as well? These
all of them, and beyond, I'd like to say, because, for instance, one thing that I integrated this year is the shape shifting of the crystals. That is another beautiful, incredible mystery that we are surrounded with as carbonites, as carbon-based structures. Sometimes we forget about the silicon-based structures because we look at them and we think they do not move, for instance, whereas it's been demonstrated, and I'm always speaking about science here. It's been demonstrated that those crystals, for instance, shapeshift, meaning they through a process that is called truncation. And I was fascinated to such an extent that in the temple journey this year, you could find different crystals in different geometrical shapes, like from the cube to dodecahedron, tetrahedron, like all of them reflecting a process of truncation. Because the cubes and the other platonic solids and the sorts of them, in other words, the sacred geometry that is creating our perception of reality is also something that I would truly love for people to get more in touch with, because it's part, I'd like to say, of our well-being. Exploring the different states at which we can exist, and the states at which all the other forms of existence can exist, I think is part of our well-being.
Let's explore that a little bit, because that's interesting. When we have different states as humans that we go through, and not everybody is fully versed in them or is comfortable with exploring them. It's like, for example, looking at the temple, there is a thing that people crave deep connections, but they absolutely refuse to get vulnerable, especially publicly. And there's this thing how we crave one thing, but we refuse to go into, as in the hero's journey, it's known as the cave we fear to enter lies the treasure we seek.
Yeah.
Right. So in terms of these experiences, when you're looking at like a holistic design for humans, are there areas that you're looking at when you're saying, okay, these are the elements that people need, these are the states that they can go in to really have a full breadth of an experience?
Yes, I do. Actually, it is at the core of what I do. I wouldn't do this if it weren't for trying very humbly to truly open perceptive doors into people's hearts and minds. So, for instance, I want to repeat it once again because I think it offers a perspective. So, when you were on the playa this year and you were walking towards the temple, you were walking towards a tensegrity experience, like a volumetric experience on the above and a non-volumetric experience in the below. So in other words, you would go into the temple hall and you would approach to different chakras. You would go to a chakra you would be naturally drawn to, because they each were emitting their own vibrations by sound and color and shape that, as I said, are truly defining our experience on the planet. And when you would go into a meditative state, you would then access what I called the hemisphere. Technically, the hemisphere is the below of the temple, the unseen, something no one can see, a very personal experience in which you could make your emotional offering. So I do design everything with the idea that your sound, the colors, the visuals, the shapes, the moment of the journey, that's why it's sort of a scripted experience in a way, they all contribute to putting you in a state of relaxation. And that is meant to also open you up by lowering your resistance. It's opening you up to reacquaint with yourself, your higher self, your connected self, that type of reality hopping experience we just have spoken about earlier. It's, in other words, trying to create a transpersonal experience by using all the tools that we have available in technology as we speak, through multisensorial stimuli.
Have you ever tried what I call reality stacking, where you take types of, we'll say, plant medicines or other types of substances and then go into a virtual reality experience to stack the realities? I don't know if you've ever tried that or not.
I've tried it with a peer company, in our transformative technology world. I will not just advertise here.
Sure.
But I've tried similar experiences, and I feel it's part of the medicine of the future, if you ask me. I do believe that with proper, I'm not big into thinking that medicine should be used recreationally. So I feel that if you make it part of a process, of preparation, of sitting properly and integrating, it will be one of the big and fascinating fields of our medicine in the future.
Mm. Yeah, there seems to be a lot, not a lot, but there's been a new wave of combining digital therapies and psychedelics and other types of things, merging those
Yeah.
together as a form of, because you literally are taking over all these different types of realities. I know there's a couple of different realities. We have our internal reality, our mental models, our belief systems, our stories. We have our external environments, which is either the physical environment we're in or the virtual environment that you've created, or our social realities, what me and you are currently doing inside here. And if you combine those types of environmentals, and then you have other systems in place and a protocol for guiding someone through a cathartic experience, it is incredibly powerful. We are slowly mastering our world to the tongue in cheek, but to godlike beings, where we can create anything, and then be able to guide people through that, which is a really powerful ability to use this technology for. But anytime you do anything that's effective, there's going to be someone that's going to find a way to abuse it. Right. There's someone sees it has a little of an effect, and then they take it and they run down the streets with it. Right. And so there's for all good and ill, all these things that we have access to are tools, and people can either utilize the tools for the most effect, or they can abuse the tools for the unintended purposes. But that is some of the beauty that is life. Some of the beauty that is life is it is all your choice. It is
Yeah.
all your choice. You have complete and full control to rise or descend. So
Absolutely, and thank you for saying that. Because again, touching back on you actually make me think of how beautifully the experience was received by all the people. Because, for instance, one of the biggest feedbacks I received was you allowed us to go to the temple and experience it together, which is, it's like having people being part of their own experience and also create their own experience. In fact, when you walked into temple, not only you were welcomed by an incredible wave of binaurals, so setting the stage for the theta. It was mostly theta. So for you to journey into the temple, but you could also sit by what I call the pebbles of contemplation, or the pebbles of connection with other people or alone, and in such small circles create small, micro experiences amongst a few people, temple goers. And I saw that, frankly, none of them has abused of it. Neither of the sitting in the temple or sitting in the hall or going into the atmosphere. But yes, in one of those realities, people will abuse, and it's part, as you said, of the journey of understanding how important medicine can be if you sit with it rather than using it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm glad to hear that nobody abused the temple. There are a natural inclination, because it is a choose your own journey adventure in life, of trolls doing things because they can, and part of the power is, humans, for both good and ill, we are highly socially impressionable creatures. We respond very well to social pressures. And so a lot of the Burning Man culture, there is a lot of hard and fast rules that nobody breaks, because we understand that this is a team sport, and we're all here together. Like trashing the playa or doing things that would desecrate it is immensely frowned upon. And in most other settings, it's a complete pass. And that's the social structures. In the challenges of these virtual environments with very little social accountability, where people can pop in, be anonymous, do what they want, and pop out, it's hard to have that social pressures because people feel disconnected. And there's this what's called Schadenfreude, called harm joy from wrecking people, and it's part, it's part of ourselves that is there and exists. How do you, how do you maintain such a powerful culture without the rigors of these social accountabilities using these virtual environments, do you think?
I think the answer is in your initial statement. I do believe that the temple is considered sacred by the most.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you see it in the way people approach it, in the attention that people put, and also asking the questions about how do we use it, how do we create an offering. In other words, they want to make sure that the process, the ceremony, I like to call it more of a ceremony, more of a
Yeah.
ritual, right?
Yeah.
That they understand the ritual because they do feel that that is a sacred space because it's non-denominational, you know, it's non-religious. It's really about them and themselves, and them and the people around them. And so that creates the classic community effect where everyone is actually creating his own set of rules for coexistence rather than having superimposed rules. The same applies to the mopping of the playa. You know, we all love the playa and we feel that it's not something that must be done. It's an integral part of our experience, and so it contradict not only the purpose but also contradict us emotionally if it didn't. So that's why there's lots of beauty in this specific take of Burning Man being the temple and the temple burn. You know, we haven't spoken a lot about the temple burn itself, but the temple burn itself has been received incredibly well, although people cannot actually experience the flames, right? The
Yeah.
fire.
The
But
heat.
the heat, and you know, the particle becoming the particle effect in virtual
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we have received an incredible amount of feedbacks with, very generous feedbacks about how that experience per se created a level of connection that to many was very similar, to many was so augmented that they don't prefer it, but they think it has a role in the way they perceive of this ceremony of shedding and transformation.
There's absolutely there is a cycle, an emotional journey, if you will, going through the temple that can't think of a better word, but climaxes with the burn, that the burning of the temple, that is a release of those emotions and a letting go, which is important to honor and then let go. Um, Let me ask you this question: is what is, with the temple and with all the work that you're doing, with these multi senses, and really inspiring people to kind of explore the entirety of their humanity. What is your holy grail that you seek to strive by creating all of this?
In 2005,
Uh-huh.
I had let's say the most transpersonal experience of my adult life. I
Okay.
went in. I had a terrible car crash, and with a lot of serious injuries and a coma. And so when I came back came back is not even when I hoped into this other reality after having hopped into that reality, I realized that what it takes is connecting. You know, like the idea itself of connecting with the invisible is per se relevant to our journey. And so since then, I decided that I had to find ways uh, not to preach, but rather to help people connect with a beautiful, not only aesthetically, but in terms of, a cosmic connection with the experiences that we can relate to if only we chose to stop resisting and remember. So what drives me really, my holy grail is making people aware and allow them to connect, to entertain heartedly, emotionally, and mentally, the idea that what we have so far spoken about at length, like our multidimensional
Yeah.
us, does have a place in our existence. It's not something that is there, but it's something that is here. Not for you to take, because that would be part of this extremely materialistic perspective on reality, is for you to connect. When I like to say I create experiences for connected well-being, I not only make reference to the technology and to how technology can connect us with one another, but also in the way with which technology can connect us with versions of the self. That is my holy grail.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. And connecting with the other and connecting with yourself as if you are all one, which is a beautiful holy grail. If that is the case, and I think you touched on a little bit, what is the dragon guarding the grail? What is the thing, the greatest challenge for you that you may not be able to overcome, or you fear that you may not be able to overcome, but you are willing to do battle with?
You just said it, fear. Yeah. Fear, I like to say that fear keeps you here. And we could start an entire long-winded conversation about this. But fear is a very interesting biological mechanism, but it is also what is that hand, that distance you from from the unknown, right?
Yeah.
From what is not available to us, because we also know the areas of the brain that are involved in such a process. So yes, the fear, like I like to say that the fear is the fear of being fearful, right? So it's definitely that, like just allowing yourself the opportunity to see just once, to feel just once, to connect just once with dimensions that don't need to be visible to exist. And this is where, this is really where we begin to open that little door, then perhaps it becomes a portal later on, in the door of being John Malkovich, remember? A little door. and then it becomes a portal as big as La Puerta del Sol, right? They're going to Machu Picchu. And
Yeah.
it's just putting the doubt, that crack into the wall of fear, and allowing our emotions to let go, our brain to let go, and allow just once, because this is what it takes. Just once, the doubt that we are not. Of course, we are in the moment of the yuga. We're saying the yuga of material consciousness, but that we are also other versions of us. So that crack is what I'm working on, and I might be the dragon to tame.
That's beautiful. Right. If you look at it in terms of, if your goal is to connect with others and connect with yourself, inspire other people to do that along the path, fear is the ultimate wall. Fear closes. I mean, think about your action. You fear, you tighten up, you shut down, you close up, you remove. People deeply want to connect with people online. People want to talk about their journeys, but they're afraid of what people will think. They're fear of this. So that makes a ton of sense. And is in completely alignment with the hero's journey that you've articulated along the way. With that being said, is there anything else you'd like to let people know about before you can tell them how to get a hold of you?
There's something that I'd like people to know, and is the last year's experience, Temple Burn 2020. We have transposed it into a movie, and that movie has made it into the selection of a couple of festivals, one being the Chelsea Film Festival. So I'd really like those who have not had the experience, the time and place to experience, to try and experience it. Because, again, what I'm trying to bring into people's worlds is a form of alignment and balance through the content that I create. It is not about the content in itself, it's about the effect that that type of content is supposed to bring into their experiences. And also something I'd like to share with people now is this. I'd like to, if you allow me, to only strike one long-lasting note for everybody's alignment.
Please, yes, that'd be beautiful.
And to bring the spirit of the forest into everybody's life. Sorry for the drum roll experience. This is some Palo Santo that I'm really putting on for everyone, as a moment of contemplation, meditation, togetherness. I really hope that we do unite in one big breath in and a big exhale out.
Simeone, it has been an absolute pleasure. If people want to find out more about you and what you do, how do they get a hold of you?
I'm not a big social media person, but they can connect with me on LinkedIn. It is something, and just type my name and last name, and I'll be happy to connect.
Beautiful. Brother, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I appreciate all of it, and I will see you on the other side.
Thank you for having me. I feel, again, as I said, privileged to have had this amazing conversation with you.
It was an absolute honor, brother. Take care and have a blessed and beautiful day. See you later.
You too. Namaste.
Namaste. Bye now.
Thank you for listening to the Heroes of Reality podcast. Check out heroesofreality.com for more episodes. While you're there, you can also take the Heroes quiz to find out what kind of hero you are. Or, if you have a great story and want to be on the podcast, tell us why your hero's journey will inspire others. Thank you for listening.